Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Drop the Clutch. This is episode 8. Unfortunately, it's just me and our guest this evening, as Dan and Nick are both unwell. Unfortunate, but we carry on. This guest has been on before. Dylan, would you like to reintroduce yourself to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm back again. Been asked to come on again, so I was too bad last time. Be fun to talk about more in general speedway this time after a very direct conversation last time about certain things. So it'll be quite fun.
Definitely. Right. Let's dive in then, shall we? Go first topic. Should we go with predictions for the leagues this season?
Can do. It don't make very good listening for Wolves fans out or Birmingham actually with my Premiership and Championship predictions.
Honestly, I don't see us getting very far, to be honest, either, just because,
Yeah, it's a strange.
Wasted a lot of points on signing Nick Morris, and
it's a strange lineup. It's a bit like the Oxford one, strong at the not as dominant as Oxford's, with strong at the top, but still quite a strong at the top team, and not being complete yet. With only a month and a half to go.
Always seems to be the way with Birmingham. We're always missing something.
I get the feeling that last rider was probably going to be that lad, the Australian lad, who crashed in something over the winter and now he's out until June or July time. I got the feeling he was probably going to be the last one.
That's what I'd heard. Anyway,
had to rearrange things a little bit now.
Well, there's a few British riders out there that are in need of a team spot, so
madness, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe one of them will get one.
Can hope. Although I don't think anyone's average is low enough for Birmingham.
No.
That's the problem.
Probably end up bringing in a 4-point rider from somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard a couple of grumblings of people wanting Gino Manzarez. He's a good rider, but I think it'd be a risk not being over here for a while.
His average wouldn't fit either. I think he's on a 5-point average.
I don't know. But he could, maybe because he's had a few seasons out, it could get reassessed, but
it'd be nice if he got reassessed on a 4, because I reckon that'd be a false average, because I reckon as soon as he gets a few meetings under his belt, he can score points.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see which way they go.
Yeah. So, start with Premiership then.
Are we doing this top to fourth to? Well, I haven't predicted the order they're going to finish. I've just predicted who the top 4 will be.
Yeah, we'll go from 4th to 1st.
Predicted 4th as Peterborough. Not complete yet, but I think with the riders they have got, I think with the rumours going around of the last couple of riders as well, I think they'll be up there. Although I'm hearing a lot of Emil Seiverden off to Ipswich, which I think could change that around. But for now, I'd say Peterborough probably, based off the rumours I've heard. I think they're probably a little bit stronger. 3rd, I've got Bellevue. I don't think this year's team's as good as last year's. I think Bewley coming back's a good signing. I think they'll miss Frick. Jake Mulford's an unknown as the rising star. Jamon Lidsey, he's a better rider than he was when he was last year, but I don't know if he's at that level to step up to, back up the heat leaders there. So I don't see them win. I don't see them winning the league this year, if I'm being honest. And I hope they don't either, because they were unbearable last year.
They were just a little bit, but they were celebrating because it was like their first one in so long. So,
but would they have won it if Robert Lambert hadn't came in?
Maybe not.
Would Max Frick have got all the points that Lambert did? Had he have not got injured, I don't think he would have.
No.
Second, I've predicted Leicester. I think their
That's a good
top
shout.
four is phenomenal. To get Max Frick, Bomber, Nick, and Richard Lawson all in the same team and still have a strong tail end takes some doing. So the fact they've managed to do that, I think, stands them in good stead. I think this is probably touching on my riders to watch per team, but I think Dan Thompson as rising star is a good shout as well. So yeah, I do like the look of the Leicester team. I know people are a little bit frustrated with Sedgy and Allen as the last two, but if Sedgy can do what he did for Sheffield or Brum last season this year, then I think he'll be an astute signing. And Jake Allen did get better towards the end of last season as well.
He might need, Justin Sedgman will probably need a couple of meetings to get the Leicester track dialed in, but I reckon after that he'll be fine.
Yeah, he took a couple to get dialed in at Brum, didn't he? And then he was flying around there more often than not.
Yeah.
And my first place team, and I don't know if this is the team I think will win the playoffs, but I think it's the team that I think will finish top of everything. Sheffield. I think they're a very good team again. Keeping Jack Alder and Toby in there, Louis Kerr and Adam Ellis is a good foundation. David Belago coming in is a good signing for him as well. And then they've got a fairly strong tail end as well. Dan Gilks, is he their rising star? I think he's their rising star.
Yeah.
I think if he comes back how he was before he got injured, I think he'll be a very good signing. It just depends how he comes back from the injury.
Yeah.
That's probably the worry at the minute for Plymouth and for Sheffield is how he comes back from his injury. So yeah, that's my top four predictions. I think Kings Lynn and Wolves look a level below, at least a level below these four.
The problem with Wolves is that they haven't brought any new blood in really, apart from Zach Hogg. And the team that it's pretty much the same team that got slaughtered by Sheffield in the playoff semi-final setting leg last season. And it didn't work then, so it's not going to work again, is it?
I think a lot. Sam Masters being fully fit, I think, will help. I think Luke Becker and Dougie need to both take a step on up next season, like a next step. A lot will depend how Rory comes back. I think we'll get a rough idea of that. I'd expect Rory to be lined up in Sam's testimonial. I think that'll be a good chance for him to get redialed in and then the press and practice the night after. Zach's an interesting one. He did well for Paul last year, especially in the second half of the season. And he's definitely a step up on Drew Kemp as well. Drew was really disappointing last season for me. I think Zach is a better signing than Drew Kemp, but I don't think it's a team strong enough to challenge, the top four there, really.
Could be right. Depends how the tail end comes on, and like you say, if the other riders pull their weight straight off the bat.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on the top three. It'll be interesting to see how they line up as well. Sam's obviously number one. It'll be interesting whether Rory goes to number 5 again to be with Leon and Zach, or whether they put Dougie or Luke at 5. I think Steve will probably stay at number 2. So that middle 3 to 5 will be the positions. Personally, I'd have Rory at number 5. I think Zach at number 6 can learn from Rory, and Leon can work with Rory as well. But it will be interesting to see how they line the team up.
Well, of course, Rory and Leon will be together at Berwick as well, won't they? So that'll be a good partnership.
Yeah, that's why I do think they'll have Rory at 5 with Leon at 7 as well. Because Leon will be an elite leader at Berwick as well. So him and Rory will probably ride together a fair bit there this season as well.
That's good. So should we move on to Championship? What do you have for Championship?
4th to 1st again.
Yeah.
4th, I've got Edinburgh. I think Edinburgh's team looks... It's a potential team. If it all clicks, it'll be a fantastic team. I think Craig Cook going back's a big bonus. I can see Josh Pickering taking that next step up as well. Paco, Kai, and Lassie really need to step it up this year. They ain't got the comfort of knowing Sam and Josh will dig them out the hole if they're in an hole. I think Bickley needs to progress again. I think the last couple of seasons for Bickley have been a stall. I think he's hit a bit of a wall. And Jacob Hook was okay without being spectacular. It was his first visit in the Olympic to Wolves, and I was not impressed by him there. But then it was his first visit. There's potential, otherwise I don't think they'd have had him back again. But there is a bit more pressure on them riders to step up this year to back up Cookie and Picker. Third, Dan's going to be happy with this because I've had Scunny. I think this is the strongest Scunthorpe team that there has been for a long time. You got Dougie again leading at number 1. If Michael Palmtoft comes back from his injury, he'll be a solid number 5. Put Jake Allen in at number 3 with Connor Mount in maybe, and then Zane and Joe at the bottom, and Simon Lambert does what Simon Lambert does.
This is very true.
I think there's a lot of potential in that Scunny team. I think Kennedy will come back from his injury all right. I think Joe it'll be weird for him not having Leicester. But I think if he can dial in at Scunny, I think it'll do his career good. And Dougie's a great person to teach you how to ride Scunny as well.
That he is.
Second, I've had another team that looks stronger this year, and we've already spoke about them. I've had Berwick.
Yeah.
I think Berwick look extremely strong this year. Compared to other seasons, I think Berwick are much improved. You've got Rory coming in to replace Bomber, who, although I watched the podcast with Gary and Leon Flint on Humans of Speedway, and Gary said that it was probably the most all-round Berwick team they've built, and he said that although Bomber's entertaining, he'd much rather Bomber jump from the tapes, and I think you've got a rider in Rory who can jump from the tapes rather than battling through. So I think that will steady the nerves, and TJ is a better rider than he was last time he was there. I think Leon will probably kick on this season again. A lot will depend on how Joy gets on, but I think overall that team looks solid enough. And then number 1, I've had Paul. I think Paul are going to win the league again.
Yeah, they do look a good team.
Yeah, you lose Danny King. It's a little bit of a setback, I suppose. But then you look at Carl Newman, if he stays fit, Adam Roynan, if he stays fit, replacing Drew Kemp and Nathan Ablett, that on paper is 2 big improvements.
It is, yeah.
I think both the Cooks will step up this season. I can see one of them at least being the 3rd leader. Ben, probably.
One of them's got an average over 7 already, don't they, I think?
I'd say that's probably Ben. So I think you probably put the Cooks at 3 and 4 because the team rides so well together.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a very good looking team there. And that's going to
Definitely. I'm surprised you've missed out Glasgow, to be honest. And who's the other one? Redcar.
In my opinion, Glasgow don't look as good as last season.
No.
Ben Basso needs to step up. Bomber will do well, Basso will do well, and Brennan will do well. Everyone's favourite Danishman, Klaus, if he decides to turn up, he'll do well.
But, yeah, if he doesn't go missing again.
If he turns up. Although, to be fair, it was a massive disappointment for Birmingham this season when he was there, so it's probably better when he was. Ace Piper's an interesting one, and he's a rider I'm going to probably touch on when we come to the riders to watch, because he's a very interesting rider. And Lee Complin's Lee Complin, but I just don't think they're as good as this season's Glasgow team. I think there are better teams out there. Redcar have got a couple of unknowns. Edwards needs to step it up. James Shane's coming back from a layoff, needs to step it up. I think Daniel will do fairly well. And Jake Mulford as well, quite unknown at the minute. So they're, for me, the teams I've spoke about look stronger overall than those two teams.
Yeah. I've spoken to Lawrence Rodgers about this countless times, but he says one of the best ways to win meetings is to have a strong reserve. And a lot of the clubs you've mentioned have got that.
Yeah, because you've got Hook and Bickley. I think if one or both step up for Edinburgh, I'd expect Hook to kick on. Berwick, you've got probably Stoneman and Coles at reserve. Both of them are capable riders. Poole with Roynan and Newman, I don't think there's a pairing in the league that's better than them two combined at reserve. And Scunny, you've got Kennedy or Mountain with Thompson, either Kennedy or Mountain at reserve. So very, very good riders to have there.
Definitely. But yeah, we did touch on it before like when we started, but the look of the Birmingham team, it just looks like a bit of a mishmash because there's no third heat leader.
Yeah.
To be honest, as much as I like James Pearson, if he doesn't really kick on this year, he's going to have there's going to be an issue with the Birmingham fans if he doesn't really kick on this year. Yeah, he was getting decent scores at the back end of last season, but it's whether he can keep that up.
Yeah, I think last season you could pardon it, I suppose. He was learning all the new tracks. This season he's not new to them. I think he does. I know he's only a young lad, but if you want to progress, you really need a good second season. He's been to all these tracks now. He really needs to kick it on and score some points. I think it depends on the sign as the other reserve, but a bit of experience in there to match. That's where I think Wolves have done well in getting. Zach Cook is a bit more of an experienced rider to work with Leon, whereas at the minute it's looking like an unknown to go with Pearson as well.
Yeah.
So it could be a little bit of a weak tail end.
I agree. And then there's that issue of not having a third heat leader.
I think the season will start with James Wright probably being that third heat leader, just for his experience. He's an interesting one because he did well at Brum at the end of the season when he guested for some meetings, but I don't think
he can do it week in, week out.
I don't think he had a brilliant season last year. I think if Steph comes back completely injury-free and focused, at home he could definitely step up as that third heat leader. I don't know if he could do it away. I was impressed with Alfie Bertel last year, actually, as well. He did really well with Plymouth until the injury. So he could step up, but they are notably missing that third heat leader because every other team pretty much you can identify the 1, 3 and 5s.
Yeah, I agree. Although James Wright had some words at the Christmas party, he said he isn't there to just turn up every week. He is there to score points. So I suppose it's just a case of waiting and see if he does that every week, I suppose.
I think if he has the right winter behind him again, it was a little bit difficult for him going to Scunny last year with everything that happened with Newcastle. I think that can derail anybody's kind of momentum, if you like. And he did okay for Newcastle, and he did all right for Scunny, but he had some stinkers for him as well. I think with a full pre-season behind him and starting from scratch with the team he's going to see the season out with, I think that will help him. He has the potential to step up. It just depends. He has the experience to step up. It just depends whether he can or not. Looking at, some of these teams. Look at Oxford. Their top three of Lewis Kerr, Scott Nichols, and Sam Masters.
Yeah.
Would James Wright beat any of them three? Probably not. But Or you look at Redcar, Reese, Wright, and King. Does he beat any
Yeah.
of them three? But I think once he's dialed in at Prey Bar, he'll be good there, and his experience on the away tracks will help. It's just whether he can do it for 5.5 months.
This is true. And yeah, everybody says as well how good of a signing Nick Morris was, but the points he took up,
It's good for
that's
double
just my
figures.
main gripe about it.
Yeah, he's good for double figures, but one rider can't win a meeting.
Exactly. Has
It's
to be a
like
team.
he has done well for Leicester, but he knows the Leicester track last season in the Championship. He knows every rider knows Birmingham, but you look at the scores, and he didn't. I know that the meeting was rained off or whatever, and then there was all these issues, but he didn't look great at Birmingham last season. He's a big name in that league. He's a big fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
I think he has the potential to score maxims left, right, and centre, but where's the other, 31 points coming from for the win?
Exactly. Well, if Justin Sedgman has a good night, then you've got like a guaranteed 10 points from him at the very least.
Yeah, but then it's that thing again of missing that third leader who's going to get the 21 points needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Can Steph, James Wright, Alfie Bertel, James Pearson, and whoever the other rider is get the points combined? If they all have a good night, they're capable of getting 7 or 8 each. But they
This is
all
true.
have a good night.
But yeah, if it doesn't work, it's going to be another long season, I think.
Yeah.
Although, to be honest, it won't be long, will it? Because it's a shorter one this year than it was last year. So
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But I'm getting to Birmingham this year, actually. I've got plans in place to get there, so I hope it's not a nightmare of a season for Birmingham.
don't we all? Especially after last season.
I think this is a make or break season for the consortium as well.
Yeah.
I think they'll know a lot more come October, November this year, whether it's a project worth carrying on with.
I just know, because I'm on the committee for the supporters club at Birmingham, I just know they've got some massive plans for this season. So it's got to work, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So literally, like you say, it literally is make or break.
Yeah, because they've had like Nigel Tolley's increased his sponsorship any, and it's like it really needs to pan out the way they've planned it. I think last season they could be forgiven. They came in quite late, and it was what was left. This season they've had a full winter to prepare. I do think that this isn't the team they initially went for before Edinburgh came back. I'm 90% sure Josh Pickering was probably on his way to Brum.
Well, Lawrence Rogers had plenty of conversation with Tom Brennan as well across the course of last season, but there was another thing that got in the way there.
Yeah.
And it's called money.
Yeah. Tom Brennan's a rider on the up. I think he knows his worth. He's increasing. His stock is increasing now. Nothing against Lawrence. I think Birmingham probably need a new team manager.
A lot of people have been saying this recently. I like the guy, I do, but
I personally think it's time for a change. I'd say the same at Wolves as well. I think Pete Adams is past his best. But there's no chance of it happening at Wolves, I don't think. I do think if this season doesn't pan out and the consortium do carry on, I think it's time to strip it back and introduce their own team manager and their own sort of plan.
Yeah.
We'll have a very interesting conversation come October, November after this season, but I don't see Birmingham getting top 4.
No, not with the team they've put together. Not if it all doesn't click.
I think
if it doesn't click from the drop, then
yeah, I think it's a team that can probably avoid the spoon. But
that'd be nice for once.
but I think it's a team that will have a a difficult season.
Yeah.
But then, as you've touched on as well, there's riders out once, averages start to drop. I can't see Nick maintaining a 10.4 average or whatever he's coming on. Once that drops, I think you may see someone sacrificed to fit a Dan Thompson in, maybe. Or if if somebody's not doing well and you've got Drew Kemp on a 4.5 average, it's
Yeah.
worth it. For me, he had a really poor season for Wolves and he was great for Paul either, but I think on a 4.5, if he does get it right, he could be a good bargain on that average as well. So I think it's going to be interesting come the first set of new averages where teams are.
Yeah. I have to agree. I'm just trying to find the last final averages from last season. See who we could potentially fit in. Because there's not that many riders on 4 points.
No, I do think it'll be a foreign rider. I think it'll be a new foreign rider coming in on assessed average, to be honest. I think it'll be interesting to see where Plymouth go with their last two as well.
Yeah.
You've got a good foundation with Richie, Kyle, and Ben Barker, but then you've got returning from injury Dan Jelks and Ben Trigger who's stepping up. I don't know how much they've got left to play with. Well, Paul Stark in that team. He hasn't been added to this list, actually.
I think so.
But I thought Paul Stark had announced the message changed his mind. But I do think whoever their last signing is will be interesting as well. I think it'll be between Plymouth and Brum, who gets to spoon. But I do think Birmingham have experience on their side.
Which sometimes just come in handy.
Yeah, there's no substitute for experience, is there? You can help the younger riders. That's why I think somebody like Rory Schlein at Berwick's going to help Jonas Knudsen, Nathan Stoneman and Connor Coles, the lesser riders. Rory's got that experience. It'll help at Wolves with Zach Cook and Leon as well. It's, people like that, Scott Nichols with experience will help Luke Killeen, Henry Atkins, Jordan Jenkins at Oxford.
Yeah, definitely.
It's them people who aren't necessarily the free scoring, Sam Masters, Nick Morris, Josh Pickering in the championship, but they've been around, they've been to the top of the sport. Scott Nichols, former Grand Prix rider, that's going to help Luke Kelly and Henry Atkins no end.
Definitely. So, what else should we talk about? There's been some news come out from the Isle of Wight recently, and about how they've formed a new league.
Yeah,
Can we chat about that?
I think that was quite long overdue, if I'm honest. The Isle of Wight, since they decided to drop out of the National League, it has been a big miss. So I think, for them getting the league together, there's a rumour of another team as well going to be joining, which hasn't been announced yet. I think it's good to have an alternative.
Yeah.
You look at, I know he ain't everyone's cup of tea, but you look at Fan Power and you watch his videos, and he's been saying that this Nora League is an option and a viable option as well. I know it's nowhere near as big as the SGB leagues, but if it takes off and if teams don't necessarily like the way the BSPL are taking it, there's an alternative there now.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I've got the gig to do the Cradley graphics for the team announcements for that league, so that's going to be quite fun to do.
Very nice.
It'll be good to see the Cradley, even as a Wolves fan, it'll be good to see the Cradley name back. But yeah, I'm going to be watching that league with intrigue to see how it turns out.
Same.
I think The National League, I think this is a big season for the National League as well. You've got Mildenhall that have confirmed, although from everything we've read last season, their track was atrocious.
I did at the Danny Ayres meeting. I did a track walk with the riders because you could pay to do a track walk, and there's literally bits of debris from the stock cars in the night before. Riders picking up bits of glass, and when we were there, somebody said they'd picked up half a caravan off the track. Like, why is that there? Surely it should have been moved.
Yeah, these are young kids that they're expecting to ride on that as well.
Exactly.
It's shocking. I think
They haven't got very good shale there either. There always seems to be a blue line by the time the meeting is finished.
Yeah, the blue groove, the dreaded blue groove. That happened at Wolves a couple of times last year as well, to be fair. I think shale in general is not as good as it used to be, but I think tracks need to be of a certain standard.
Yeah.
I know you watch Fan Power, again, touching on Fan Power, he spoke about how Scunny was dangerous, and I know from what I've heard, Scunny have brought the air fence from Newcastle.
Yeah.
So that'll give them a little bit more of, you look at Zane Kennedy's crash last year, and that was horrendous.
It was.
I think safety needs to be upped on certain tracks. Mildenhall's definitely one of them. I think Scunny are doing positive things to improve theirs. But it will be interesting for the National League as a whole. I think Workington coming back is a really big thing. The Northside track looks amazing as well.
It does.
And, they've done really well to sign the team they've signed. I hadn't really looked into the National League too much, if I'm honest, but Edinburgh running a second division team's interesting. Oxford have just got some fairly good backing for their National League team. So it is going to be interesting with how things pan out for this year, but I do think Nora will turn out to be a very viable option for the future.
Yeah, definitely.
If we want to touch up on some meetings that are coming up, individuals before the season starts, there's a few of them on the calendar.
There's the Ben Fund. I know who's in that. Hang on. If I was in the right Discord server.
So far, Fred Lindgren and
Simon Lambert, Danny King, Connor Mountain.
They're the only four, I think, that have been announced so far.
Yeah, they are, yeah.
Rider like Freddie. Freddie's doing a little bit of a tour at the minute for the start of the season. And over here, he's doing Robbo's farewell, which hopefully finally gets staged.
Let's hope so. He's doing Sam Masters' testimonial as well, isn't he?
Yeah, the reaction for Freddie coming back, which makes me even more gutted that Wolves couldn't sign him for this season. Yeah, it's good to have a rider like Freddie coming over for a week or so and doing, a couple of testimonials, and then the Ben Fund as well. Freddie's a rider that dedicated a lot of his career to British Speedway with Wolves anyway, so I think it's good to have a Grand Prix rider and somebody with as high a stature as Freddie in the world of British Speedway now coming over to do that.
I'll say what Nick's been saying for the last few weeks. He's just waiting with bated breath to see if Freddie Lindgren rides in the Peter Craven Memorial at Bellevue.
When is that?
Because it's the same week. I think it's the 20th of March.
It's the 20th of March. Possibly. I think
because it's the same week, isn't it?
Yeah, because he's doing the Robbo meeting on the 19th. It makes sense to do the Peter Craven. I wouldn't be surprised to see him lined up for the Tyne Tees trophy, although probably not. And then you've got the Ben Fund on the 25th. You've got Sam's meeting on the 26th. So it is good to see somebody like Freddie back over it. I think he's probably coming towards the back end of his career now.
Yeah.
I think he wants to get in these meetings. I do think we'll see him back in Britain for another season with Wolves before he decides to retire.
Yeah. I think he's generally on the hunt for a world title first, isn't he, before he retires?
I think he was on the cusp of that, but I think the COVID and the lung COVID and then the injuries as well, I think that's properly leveled out his world title. In my opinion, it's leveled out his world title aspirations a little bit. I think if he was going to do it the season before last, when he was world number 3 or whatever it was, I think that was probably the one he was going to do it, if he was. But you never know. He could do it, but I think Bartek's on a different level to everyone at the moment.
I don't want to think him winning don't want to think about him winning another one. I don't like him.
Former Brummie though, come on.
Nah, I don't like him.
But
he only thinks about himself.
World Championship Speedway though, that's the only person you need to think about.
It's not helpful when Poland want to win a Speedway Nations title, though, is it?
Or the World Cup. I've got a feeling Poland are going to run away with the World Cup this year.
It's at Wrocław. It's in Poland. Like, you just got to guess who's going to come second and third.
You're going to predict all the minor places, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think
the minute they announced it, I was like, well, you may as well just give them the World Cup now,
That's probably why they've brought it back, to stop the Poles moaning they never win anything. They've never won the Speedway Nations, have they?
No, just because it's a more even competition where the Poles don't dominate.
Yeah.
Because that's such a bad thing.
I know, it's boring seeing the same team dominate everything.
Exactly. But
why I'm hopeful that Bellevue will screw it up this year and have a mare. I couldn't live in a world where Bellevue became continuously successful.
Oh, don't let Nick hear you say that.
I just can't stand Bellevue. Or most of their supporters, to be fair. Although I can't stand a lot of Speedway supporters. Some Wolves fans, in my head in.
I've come across quite a few Wolves fans that are quite the characters. What was it, last season? I was there at the friendly sort of match against Birmingham at the beginning of the season. I was walking up to the bar to go and I must have been going to use the loo or get a drink or something. And somebody caught their foot under mine and I fell flat on my face. And nobody was there to help me up. I was like, well, excuse me, that's rude. I don't know if it was an accident or on purpose or what, but,
Yeah, there is some... To be fair, it's not the people in general, it's their mindset. I've been quite vocal on my opinions of this Wolves team being weaker. I've been vocal on my opinions of Drew Kemp last season. I saw people saying Drew Kemp should have been the first name back for Wolves, and I'm like, what
planet are you on? Yeah.
What were you watching? Some of them live in their own little universe, and if they were told to jump, they'd be like, how high? It is madness that I get supporting your team, and I do support Wolves. I'm a Wolves fan, but be realistic about it. Like, I'm under no illusions Wolves are going to win the league this season, because if we do, then I've got the chance of becoming a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
It's that unlikely. But people say, look, at least you're racing.
Yeah.
You want to be competitive whilst you're racing. Especially
this is true, yeah.
It's probably going to be between 20 and 25 quid admission. And
Jeez.
It's a team of... That ain't been confirmed yet, by the way. It's just in that kind of area, innit? But, to spend 260, 270, 300 quid through the year to watch a team get beat or not be competitive. People are only going to do that for so long.
But yeah, people are going to vote with their feet.
Yeah, and that's the problem. I think CVS was quite candid about this when we had the talking at the end of last year. He said he hasn't got the money financially to. His exact words were, people asked why Freddie were back or whatever, and he said he couldn't feasibly approach Freddie with an offer because he ain't got the money to pay him that kind of money. And it got to the point last year, CVS admitted this. He said he was straight up with the riders and said because of the ticketing situation, they'd be getting paid a little bit late. And he said he did pay them all, and they all understood the situation. But if he's in that kind of situation with out world-class riders, there's no chance of Ty Wolfenden's, Freddie Lindgren's, even Jakob Thorsel's, people like that coming back now. But he did also say at that talking that he was looking to sell the club, and he'd had no interest in anyone wanting it. I think that's the problem. He's got to that point now where the state of the world and fans, for the most part, fans stick behind them. They'll be happy with whatever, but you've got to be realistic as well and say, people aren't going to keep supporting a mediocre team.
Well, I'm going to be really honest here, but after the last season at Birmingham, and then like the hockey season started and I stopped thinking about it, but for a while after the season ended at Birmingham, I was thinking, why do I keep doing this? Why am I spending like £18 a time to watch them lose every week? And I literally sat and had a serious think about it. And I said, if stuff doesn't change, I'm going to be going myself. So literally, it's make or break for everybody, including me this year. Because like the way, like I haven't been a hockey fan as long as I've been a Speedway fan, but 3 years now. But the atmosphere at games and the fan base it's just so different. Off the ice, the fans talk to each other. There's no snarky remarks. There's nothing. It's just a love of the sport, and Speedway has seemed to have lost that the last few years. I mean,
Speedway. I've only been a fan of Speedway since 2014. Technically, my first proper season for like 9 years, and the way that the sport has changed, even in 9 years, from where it was then to where it is now, it's like, I don't think it's in as bad a situation as a lot of people would like to make out. Like some people would have you believing that the doors would close on it tomorrow and all the tracks would become houses. I don't think it's quite that bad, but I do think it's in a downward spiral. But I don't think there's a way out of it at this point either, to be honest.
No.
I think it's a ship that's going down. You either jump off and get out now or you go down with it, kind of thing. I don't think there's any way of stopping it going down. And that's the shit thing about it, because, we all love Speedway. We go every week. It'd be a really strange life for me not going to Wolves on a Monday and Brum on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it'd be weird for me as well during the summer, I won't lie.
But, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think the new Breakaway League might inject something into the BSPL to mix things up a little bit, but I don't think
that's the hope.
I don't think the BSPL have got a Scooby-Doo what they're doing, to be honest.
No, unless something changes in the people that run the sport ain't going to change.
Nah, and that's the problem, ultimately. But it is what it is. Like, you don't see as many kids going to meetings now. It's a lot of elderly people or middle-aged people who they always do these offers for kids to go free or whatever for certain meetings, and it's like they're trying to get the next generation in, and even going free doesn't bring in the next generation because adults are still paying 20 odd quid each to come to it. It's like the kids can't come unless the adults do, and the adults are paying through the nose in a cost of living crisis to watch.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'd say there's a couple of standout teams this year in the entirety of British Speedway, and it is good to see. It is mainly Aussies, though, the big names over here, your Fricks, Doyle, Alders. It'd be a boost for if Emil came back to Ipswich, but then deep down we all know he'd only be back because of the Russian situation and the Grand Prix.
Yeah. He'd want the track time, yeah. That's the only reason he'd come.
The problem is people are coming back because of situations, not because of the passion to want to ride over here. Give Doyle credit. Doyle loves British Speedway, but the Aussies generally do because a lot of them live here. But
yeah,
I think if riders came and had the passion that you saw 5-10 years ago, then we could get it up. You got your bigger names coming back, but I don't think it's necessarily for the passion of British Speedway. I think there's ulterior motives in there.
Yeah, well, how different would it have been if the 2020 season had gone ahead?
Yeah.
Could that have been the kicker that actually started something and started change, but then it never happened, did it? So.
And then we had a delayed 21 season and it was all weird.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to look for excuses. I think COVID did cause an issue or two. I don't think Speedway has responded as well to it as football and that.
Yeah, it did for all minority sports, because again, I'm comparing hockey to Speedway, because the back end of the 1920 season in the Elite League in the hockey got cancelled when COVID kicked in as well, and that didn't come back properly until like the end of 2021. And even then there was restrictions, but they got through it, and they're still getting crowds on average of about 1,800 every home match.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen a crowd at Wolves this season above 800, 800. There's definitely not been 1,000 people there.
Well, the Bellevue matches are an exception because there seems to be quite the rivalry there, but
We bring their little coach down, don't
they? Yeah.
As much as I hate Bellevue and their fans, at least they have that thing about them to do that. Like, I know Wolves have set up a supporters group, but I get the feeling it's more of to help the club rather than to help the supporters.
It is, yeah.
And that's the problem. A supporters club should be there for the supporters. You've got the Birmingham one. Pretty similar as well, whereas the Bellevue Supporters Club will do things to help the supporters, put on travel and stuff like this, which is what you'd expect a supporters club to do, not collect money to help support the club. And that's what annoys me.
Well, I'm going to say this on behalf of Andy, who's the chairman of the Bromley Supporters Club. We've got some good stuff coming. There's some big things coming, and it's not just for the club, it is literally for the supporters as well. The Christmas party was just the beginning.
Because interesting you mentioned that, actually, because Steph was supposed to be there, wasn't he? And he messaged to say that he couldn't go because he was unwell, and I know he had been ill for a few days, but he was absolutely gutted to miss that because Birmingham fans got so behind him last year. He wanted to go down and be there and show his support and stuff back, and he was properly gutted to miss that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was explained at the party that he was ill or not. So
it was, yeah.
Yeah, but he was really unwell for a few days before, and I did message him a couple of days before, and I was like, "You're going to make this party?" And in typical Stefan fashion, he replied on the day of the party about 4 hours before, saying I've just to say I can't come. But but I know I was properly gutted to have missed that.
Yeah.
I've got a list of riders to watch if you're interested in that.
Yeah, let's put some positivity back in this, shall we? Because we've taken it rather a bit of a negative route, haven't we? But, just being honest, that's what this podcast is, just literally being honest. So,
Speedway fans being Speedway fans, we're not obliged by anyone to kiss their arse and say it's brilliant.
Exactly.
You've got to keep your integrity.
Mm.
But yeah, riders to watch. I'm interested to hear yours for this as well. So go team by team, and we'll both say them.
Okay.
Bellevue, I've got Tom Brennan. I think he stepped up last year. I think it's a big season for him stepping out the rising star this year, although probably not by choice.
Yeah.
I think he's due a good season, like a breakout season. I don't think he's even had that yet. I think last year was a step up. I think this year he'll solidify himself as that proper, main body, possibly heat leader rider.
Yeah, I have to agree. I reckon he could possibly get to third heat leader at Bellevue.
Yeah, definitely got the potential to do that. And if Basso went on it, I think he could end up at Glasgow's number one as well, over Bomber and Basso. I think
could see that.
Definitely on a good path, which is good to see coming back from the injury he came back from.
Yeah, that was nasty.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was one missed out. Yeah, Bellevue and Wolves, Sheffield, Leicester, Peterborough, William. Oh, okay. Maybe I've not missed anyone out. I don't know. Sheffield, I've got Lewis Kerr. I think
Yeah,
him moving to Sheffield rejuvenated his career.
it did.
I think he's good enough to be that third heat leader there as well, similar to Brennan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he really did step on, and I think he came in on a bargain average. He's still on a bargain average for me.
He was starting the season at reserve.
Possibly, yeah, which is madness.
It is. I've got to agree. My one to watch for Sheffield is just to see how David Balago comes back.
He's a different rider than the one that raced
exactly.
over.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's really kicked on a bit, so it will be interesting to see how he comes back. Kings Lynn, this was a difficult one, and I haven't gone for Kasperzak.
No, their team rides a lot on him this year.
Yeah, I've gone for Nikolai Frederick Jakobsen.
Yeah.
I think he showed
looked good at the end of last year.
He showed what it was about, yeah. And with a full season under his belt, I think he'll do really well. Do I think that's the team to progress with fully? No. I've got my own opinions on the management at Kings Lynn.
Yeah.
Seems sound as a parent, but I think he's more of a friend to him rather than a manager, and that's not necessarily always a good thing.
Yeah.
But I do think he'll kick on. I think he starts on like a 7 point something average, so he'll be up there early on, and I think he has got the potential to solidify himself as even a number 5 this year.
Yeah, definitely. I'm watching Kasperzak drop to reserve, I'll bet.
Kasperzak will end the season as a rising star or something.
Yeah, somewhat like that.
Yeah. But Kings Lynn's was difficult to pick.
Who's
yours for Lynn?
I hadn't really thought about it. But Jason Edwards rising star there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon if he can, because he was coming into some good form at the back end of last season, if he can continue that and take it up another level, I reckon he'll have another good year.
Yeah, that's feasible. Leicester, I touched on this already. I think Dan Thompson. I think there's a lot of proven riders in that Leicester team. Well, 6 proven riders. I think Dan Thompson, when he had that one meeting for Sheffield this season, he scored. He looked comfortable. I think everybody's kind of done the Richie and Steve Worrell, where Steve's looked at as the better brother. I think Dan's probably looked at as the better of the two Thompson twins.
Yeah.
I think it might harm him not having a championship team. I think he's too good for National League.
Yeah.
But I think he'll do what needs to, and obviously being at Leicester, I think he knows the track inside out anyway, so you'd fancy him against any rising star around there.
It's true. For me, it'll have to be to see how Max Frick adjusts to that track, just because it's totally different to Bellevue.
Yeah.
But if he can adjust pretty quick, I can see him being a pretty good rider around there.
Yeah, he ain't going to race there for years, is he?
No.
Yeah,
and it has changed a little bit since he last rode there, if not much.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to watch. Ipswich, I've gone for another new rider. I've gone for Kenyon Rue. There's a lot of hype around him. And I think he's got the potential to live up to that as well.
Yeah.
I did think that he'd possibly be the rider Birmingham looked at. I don't know. I think he'd probably go into the championship on a 5-point assess though, so not now. Before the Alfie Botel signing, I had a kind of feeling that he could have potentially been a rider looked at. But it'll be interesting to see if he is in the championship this year or not. But I think he has I don't expect him to set the world on fire, but I think he'll have a steady introduction to British Speedway.
As long as he sets the foundations early and he just steadily progresses, I think he can have a good season and put maybe a point or two on his starting average. Yeah. Got to agree with you there. But as the Ipswich team isn't finished, I can't really comment on anyone else really.
Yeah. Peter Bratt, this one hurt when we didn't sign him. I've chose Ben Cook. I think I watched him a lot last season in Paul's team, and he really knocked it up a level. I think a track like Peterborough will suit him down to the ground. He reminds me a little bit of Josh Pickering. He's an entertainer. I do think he'll have a good season. It'll be interesting to see who out of him and Zach has the better season, for obvious reasons. I hope it's Zach, but I think Ben, he's going to be a brilliant addition to the Peterborough team, and that's only with 4 of their riders announced yet.
I'm going to have to say Ben Basso. Just because if he can carry on that form he was in last year.
Yeah, he did have a good set, apart from when he came to Wolves, and then he spouted off on Instagram about how much he hated the track. I won't lie.
I just don't like the Wolves track.
No. For Wolves, I've chosen Leon Flint. I think CVS touched on this at the talking. If you look at all the rising stars, Leon's the most experienced at this level now.
He is.
He looked better at Monmore this year. Last year he dialed into the inside line a little bit more, which was good to see because I remember 21 he could only ride the outside. He did get better on the inside, and in my opinion, Leon's one of the best gators in British Speedway. The kid can drop a clutch so quickly. I think the confidence of being under 19 and under 21 champion will help him as well. I think the added responsibility at Berwick will out mature him, and I think Wolves will feel the benefits of that as well.
Yeah.
He spoke about on the Humans of Speedway podcast that he's hired a full-time mechanic for this season, which is good because I know that for a few meetings, you saw it on streams or whatever, he drove himself to the meeting, he mechanicked for himself, he raced and then drove himself home. which is a kid who's loving his speedway, but you don't want to burn yourself out. So I think he's at that level now where he needs a full-time mechanic to do that for him.
Yeah.
And I think Leon will benefit from that as well.
Well, yeah, because he won't have to think about his bikes as much. And if they're ready, that'll take like one thing off his mind, and he can just then focus on racing and getting better at racing. Yeah. So yeah, I've got to agree there with that one. Yeah.
My championship ones are quite interesting. I had a bit of a difficult dilemma with some of these. We'll go in Berwick first. I've chose Jonas Knudsen. I could easily have said Leon again. I think it's a big season for him, but I think Jonas Knudsen showed so much when he came in, and I think he'll only get better. I think someone like Rory Schlein can help him learn. Berwick and tips of the trade around there, if you like. Interestingly, Knudsen was supposed to ride in the Wolves Olympic. He was in the programme to race.
He was.
And he never came. He was there for whatever reason. I think he had visa issues. I think this season he'll kick on, and I think he has the potential to be an elite leader at Berwick.
I reckon he might even end up with a Premiership spot if there's an injury or something somewhere by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's more than a distinct possibility. Team changes and anything like that, if he steps up and does well, I think, yeah, you could see teams come knocking. You got anyone in mind for Berwick? This is your area of the woods. Championships, your neck of the wood.
I haven't even thought about it. Brian's too busy thinking about the hockey season and the playoffs for the hockey season. Yeah, Leon Flint, just because, like you said, he's skipper this year, so that's like going to be a big responsibility, and like you say, that'll mature him somewhat, and yeah, I reckon it'll be a big season for him.
Birmingham's, this one was difficult.
Yeah.
I've gone with Alfie Bertel. I was very impressed with Alfie at Plymouth last season. In the meetings I saw, he really stepped it up. And it was unusual to see him score below a certain level. He held his own at number 2 at Plymouth a lot. I know Plymouth and Perry-Bar are completely different, but I think he has enough about him to be solid enough. I was impressed with him actually in 2021, I want to say, when he came in and guested for Wolves. In one meet, he never scored, but he was properly on it. And he did get a bit unlucky, but there was a lot about him. So I'm going to say Alfie Bertel for Brum.
I have to say the same, because he did a couple of meetings for us, home and away last year, and he scored well. He does ride Perry-Bar quite well. And the experience from other tracks will help the other riders in the team. Not mostly James Pearson. Yes, James has that experience from last season, but Alfie's got more around the tracks in British Speedway, so I reckon it will help James out as well. So, yeah.
Edinburgh, I've gone with Kai Thompson. I think this is his time to step up. You know, he done a couple of guest appearances last season and he scored well. He scored really well for Edinburgh a lot as well. I think he's got to really solidify himself as that third heat leader now with Nico. I think he can. He's another rider I wouldn't be surprised to see in the Premiership by the end of the season. He was a rider that I wouldn't have been mad if Wolves had signed him at number 6. There's a lot about him. He loves his riding, and tell he enjoys his riding. So yeah, I went with Kai Thompson.
I've got to go with Pickering, just because I went to Edinburgh last season, and he's unbeatable around there, and he's a good rider, and he always likes to entertain as well. He did well around Birmingham as well, so I'm actually quite scared about him coming to Perry Bar because, you know, he could literally just like knock it out of the park. Yeah, gotta go with Josh Pickering.
God help British Speedway if he ever learns to gate.
Yeah,
Glasgow
definitely.
one's probably the one that will be the most surprising, and we touched on him earlier. I've gone with Ace Piper. I saw him riding for Wolves in the pairs in one of the rounds, and he fell off. But before he fell off, he was comfortably in third place, and I think that showed that the kid had a lot about him.
Yeah.
A little bit of an experience maybe cost him, but he was beat. I want to say it was Justin Sedgman he was ahead of.
It could have been.
I think it might have been, and he was scoring really well. You know, looking accomplished. He made a good gate. He rode a smart line, and then he got in trouble off 4. But for that one lap, and he was lit. I'm sure it was Sedgy, and he looked comfortable. So I think he'll step up, and there's no pressure on him to do that, but I think he will.
Yeah, I've got to go with that, what you said, because I watched him at the under-21 final. He bombed it, yeah, on his first couple races, but after he like learnt from it and like how to ride the track, he was pretty good. He learnt pretty quick, and I reckon he'll be able to like do that going around the different tracks in the championship this year. Reckon he'll pick it up fast.
Yeah. Oxford, I think my issue with Oxford's team is they're so top heavy. And you know what you're going to get from Louis, Sam, and Scotty, so I haven't chose any of them 3. I've chose Jordan Jenkins. He can ride their track well from his time with the Chargers. For me, he stepped up a lot with Redcar last season, and you saw, you know, what he was about, and he obviously won the National League Riders at Scunny or something like that. And he looked really accomplished there. I think his experience with Peterborough as well will help him. You know, starting the season as the rising star, he's got the full season there as well. I think this will be a big season for Jenkins to step it up a little bit, and I think he's got it in him to do that.
Yeah, I've got to agree there. As long as he can stay injury free as well.
Yeah, he's one of these riders. He don't balls to the wall. He can ride smart, but he'll always give 100%.
Yeah.
And he seemed like I saw him at the pairs at Wolves on a scorching hot day, and he seemed really useful around the pits. Like he's only a young lad, but he was still mucking in with, I think it was Bomber and Scotty that day, and he was still mucking in and out and doing his bit. And that's a good attitude to have at a young age like that.
Definitely.
Plymouth, I've gone with Richie Worrell. I think I've watched Richie Worrell do interviews on BSN, and the bloke's going to be a hell of a team manager when he retires from racing. Bloke's got so much knowledge about Speedway. And I think he'll lead that team well. I think Plymouth's a track that you can have such a home advantage on. And I think if you've got somebody that knows the tips of the trade and the ins and outs of it, like Richie can take stuff like that in, I think that's, you know, he'll be like a racing team manager there. He'll be properly on it to help out whoever else is there. And I think somebody like Ben Trigger will benefit from having Richie Worrell there.
Yeah. I want to say Ben Barker, but it depends how he comes back from that ban.
Depends if he fails another drugs test.
Yeah, this is true.
Depends if he's off his tits or not.
Because he's a really good rider most of the time.
Yeah, my biggest memory of Ben Barker was one of the British finals when he stuck himself under the back straight fence at Wolves.
Yeah, he's always one that'll try, and I like that about him.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends. No, I don't think anyone can ride Plymouth as good as Ben Barker can ride Plymouth. It's just how he bounces back from a rough end to last year.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Ben Cook. I touched on this when I spoke about him for Peterborough. I think he's going to be the standout rider in the championship. I could see him easily getting up to a 9-point championship average. Easily. The kid's got a lot about him. He can gate, he can race. He's like Josh Pickering, but he can gate as well. I think if he puts it all together, there's maximums in him this season. I think he'll really kick on, and he will. I think he could push Stevie, or I think Richard Lawson will push Stevie for number 1, and I think Ben Cook will push for number 5 as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I've got to agree there.
Red car, I've gone with Daniel Hume. He showed a lot of what it was about while he was at Glasgow, to the point where they couldn't fit him in this year. I've seen him more at Wolves, where he always looks out of control. He always looks like he's two-wheeling it into the corners, but he somehow manages to two-wheel it in style and hold it. There's a lot of potential in him. Then he used to ride for Birmingham back in the National League, and there was potential there. I think he started to realise it. I think he's another rider like Connor Mountain who's been punished for progressing in the Rising Star. Although for my 10 pence worth, he shouldn't have been in that anyway.
Yeah.
But he did benefit from their meetings with Ipswich last season, and you saw it with Glasgow as well. So it will be interesting to see how he goes, but I think he'll be up there for red car for sure.
Yeah, got to agree. But my one point against him is that he's got to learn how to not ride balls to the wall. He's got to learn some proper track craft. Like, you watch him sometimes and you think, oh God, he's gonna crash.
Oh God, there's a fence coming up, ambulance.
Yeah, where are the paramedics? Yeah, he's got to learn how to control a bike and not just go flat out. He's got, but yeah, I reckon he can do well this year. But like I say, he's just got to learn not to go flat out all the time.
Yeah, I can see that point of view. And the last one, ironically enough, is the other person I mentioned there for Scunny, Connor Mountain. He's so unlucky to not have a Premiership spot this season because he really stepped up last year. I know he was only a rising star, but put him at number 6, and I think he still steps up. I think he was phenomenal last year. For me, he was one of the riders of the season. He went a little bit under the radar because he never had this enormous average or whatever. And he only finished the season on a 4.8 average, but I think he really stepped it up when he needed to, and he was a safe pair of hands. Especially in races with Nick Morris, when Nick just put his head down and cleared off, and I think that's the problem Birmingham will face this year. Nick will just put his head down and clear off. It'll be, riders like Sergio look around, and you saw Connor Mountain suffered the wrath of that a few times at Leicester last year. But I think with riders at Scunny, I think he'll fit in nicely. You got Dougie at 1. I wouldn't be surprised to see Connor at 2 if he's not at reserve. I don't know who's at reserve, but if he's with Dougie will have a look around for him and help him a little bit. So I think Scunny's a good move for Connor.
Yeah, got to agree. I think the minute somebody gets injured or there's a team change in the Premiership, he'll get snapped up.
Yeah, I think he's another one. There's a few on that list, isn't there?
Yeah, he definitely won't be without a Premiership spot for that long.
No. I think the perfect way to end this will probably be to touch up on who's not got a team spot this year, in the Championship especially.
Yeah.
I'm looking at last season's averages, and it actually surprises me. some of the riders that haven't got championship tip spots.
Yeah.
Like Max Clegg, 5.3. For me in the championship, he's worth that all day long.
It just depends on which Max turns up. If it's the good one, he's going to have a good night. But if it's the crap one, then he doesn't really care that much, I don't think.
Been a bit
Although
of
I don't know.
I enjoyed him when he was at Wolves in 16. Or it was his point when he beat, I want to say, Richie Worrell on the run to the line of one of the latter races, and it was that point for the 3-all that won the league effectively. And it was like, he has potential. I think he's probably stepped back last season.
Yeah.
He had a good 21 with Newcastle. But
He did.
I think the closure of Newcastle messed him up a little bit. I was overly impressed with him at Leicester, I'll be honest. But there is enough about him to bounce back.
Definitely.
Dan 5.2, another rider that for me is worth that all day long. Leicester were worse when Dan Thompson wasn't in the side because of injury or whatever.
Yeah.
Who else?
Connor Bailey,
yeah. 4.4. Couple of little bit lower, and I'd have nailed him on at Birmingham.
What's the British rider reduction?
Is it 2.5%?
It's somewhere within the region of 2.5 to 5. I'm pretty sure.
I want to say 2.5.
But knowing our luck, it's probably going to be just that little bit too high, even with the reduction.
I'll check this because I've got his average from this season up now.
Because because he is available, and if he fits, I'd get him in. I would. Because, looking at how he rode Birmingham with Glasgow and how he rode the under-21 final at Birmingham, he finished third, didn't he? And I reckon,
still be 4.2, so he's still just a shade too high.
I think Birmingham have got 4.22 points left.
Yeah,
so might just fit.
With the reduction, his average is 4.23.
Oh, come on! Really?
Who's available for that? This is the season. James Sargent, he'd have been great on a 3.6. Unfortunately, retired there, didn't he? There ain't really.
Oh, that's annoying now you've told me that. I'm literally not going to think about anything else. Not literally the tiniest margin.
Casper Anderson could have fit on a 4.1, but I don't think he's coming back over. I'm sure he said in an interview he's going to school in Denmark this season.
He is. Yeah.
So there ain't really anyone else. They probably will be a foreign rider on a 4, but then you look at the British riders missing out. Drew Kemp, Nathan Ablett. Nathan Ablett I'm gutted for, because his official average, I saw an interview with Danny Ford the other day that said his official average this season is a 1.5, but you can't have 1.5, so it'd have been up to 2. And that was the reason he was back at Poole. If you could have a 1.5 average, then he'd have been back. Because there is something about him.
We need to have that system that they have in. Me and my dad were talking about this the other day. We need to have that system that they have. I think it's Denmark, where they grade riders from A to D instead. Yeah. So you have to have a certain number of A riders, B, then C, etc., etc. If you know what I mean, because that way people wouldn't miss out on team spots because of numbers.
Yeah. See, that's we do it on STS, which is a bit of a sore subject for me after the other night. But that's we do it with, like, my average at the start of the season was 5.5, I want to say.
Yeah.
And I was graded as a grade 10, and every team had to have, I want to say it was a grade 10, every team has to have a rider graded. I can't remember how, but it's everyone's graded anyway. You've got like 0.49, so it's like 6 to 6.49 is a grade, and then 6.5 to 6.99 is a grade, and you have to have it built up to a grades limit of, I think it was 75 for the grades limit, or 70, rather than to a points limit, because that gives you that little bit of leeway. Then you've got the 0.49 to mess around with, which I don't see British Speedway ever following that, but I think that would be the way to do it.
Nah, that would make too much sense.
Yeah, but that's
Wouldn't
enough.
it would make too much sense.
Yeah, but it's difficult to touch on STS because of the other night. That is the way that they do it. Like, for instance, Steph on STS, he was a grade. I'll just check this. But he was the highest average rider in the league by a considerable margin.
Yeah.
Where is it? Yeah, you build up to the grades league, and at the minute for the end, here it is. 10 plus is a grade 18, and you have to build up to 73. So 18 of our 73 points were used on one rider.
Yeah.
But rather than, Steph's average at the minute is 10.43. So he's in that grade, whereas now the new averages have just come out and I've gone to a grade 9.
Yeah.
But somebody else is also a grade 9, which kind of screws me out of a job probably. But like with the gradings, how it works, it's just a little bit easier than looking at numbers and trying to fit it perfectly up, because it makes sure that everyone's team is as close to like even at the start of the season. So you couldn't have like a pool building such a strong team.
Exactly.
And you couldn't have had like Richard Lawson, Stevie Worrell, and Danny King, because in this kind of grading system, they'd all be on around the same grade.
Yeah.
I think for the benefit of British Speedway, even teams is the way to go.
Yeah.
But whether they will,
Definitely.
completely different story.
Well, I keep hearing people going, "Oh yeah, one big league will work," but it won't.
There ain't enough riders to do that. Even with the British riders coming through now, there isn't enough to do that.
Yeah.
If it was one big league, it'd be one big watered down league, and I couldn't see them doing it. It just wouldn't pay.
No. They touched on it in Speedway Star a few weeks ago, didn't they? And
yeah, people will keep asking, but that won't ever happen. But I would like to see the grading system coming.
Yeah, I like that idea. It would definitely make the teams a bit more even.
Which is what you need. Very strong teams only benefit the fans of very strong teams.
Exactly.
And which in turn benefits the promotion of very strong teams who are getting the money off the fans.
Exactly.
I think.
And then the sports in general.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. But everyone's just lining their pockets in British Speedway anyway, aren't they?
Yeah.
The unfortunate case of it, very few promoters out there are there for you. They're there for themselves. Same in any sport, though. It's not just Speedway. That's the problem. Whereas you do get the feeling this breakaway league that, that's been foundationed by Isle of Wight in it, but you get the feeling it's there for the clubs that are in it and the fans of them rather than just themselves.
Yeah, there is that, because there's only the Isle of Wight got a home track, isn't there? So, but yeah, it gives a hope of a system that could come in and do differently. But again, that system could make or break, because if other teams think, "Oh, that's a good idea," they could break away from the BSBL, because that's probably the only way the sport is going to have a long-term future in this country.
Of course it is, yeah. I think I don't see British Speedway being here in 10 years' time with the current blueprint that it's got.
Yeah.
I just don't see there's any weight here. And that's a problem because we all lose out on a sport we love and riders lose out on a job and all that. And it's like they'll go and find another job. But, you know, some of them, like Sam Masters, lives here. He's lived here for years. It's like, what happens then?
Yeah.
Problem is, promoters think of themselves first, then possibly the riders and supporters are last. Starting to sound a bit like fan power now. But it's the sad reality of it.
Yeah. We're being honest. That's
At
what
the end of the day,
this
it's a
is. Yeah.
business. If I had the business, I'd do what I had to do to make sure my business was successful, whether it was popular or not. But that's the problem we currently have, as unfortunate as it is.
Yeah. Can't disagree there.
What in it? This.
We're telling the truth. That's literally that's what's in the podcast. It's like opinions, controversy, and that's what we're here for. We're to tell it like it is.
Yeah, the official channel, like riders, I'd say most riders have got an opinion. They can't say it how it is because of not wanting to piss people off or whatever. I think British Speedway did. Let's hope it don't. But if it did ever fold in this country, you'd hear so many stories from so many people. But you never see a poor promoter, do you? Even if they've not got them pump into their club, they've still got that's only a
side
small
businesses and stuff. Yeah,
it's exactly what it is to business. It's just another method of income for them and their shareholders, kind of thing.
Exactly.
A couple of people ain't going to change it, and whilst the people that are in charge are lining their pockets, they ain't going to let it be changed either.
No, because they'll lose the money then.
The rich person cannot stand is losing money. If they start losing money, then they'll change. If they're making money, they don't give a shit how unhappy the fans are or whatever. They'll carry on doing what they're doing. That's the problem.
Yeah, you've got to agree.
The rich make money to spite themselves, don't they?
Yep. They don't give a shit about anybody else.
It's business. It's the harsh reality of the world.
Yeah. And on that note, let's wrap it up, shall we? Well, thanks to everybody for listening. Yeah, it's been a bit of a controversial episode on some of the opinions we've put out, but that's the way this podcast is. You know, we're here to say it like it is. We're not here to pander to the clubs and the promoters in the BSBL, so we just say it like it is. But thanks for listening, everybody. It's bye from me, and do you want to...
Bye from me.
See you later, everybody.